In the heart of the nation where laughter's the key, Nat Chat's the podcast, join the revelry. Taking the Mickey with positive spin. Country folks unite and let the Nat Chat begin. Nat Chat where the laughter's free. Spinning tales about politics with positivity.
How good is that theme song? That is written and performed by Good Nats man and Voice Australia runner-up, Mick Harrington. Mick's going to come on the podcast in the coming months to discuss all sorts of things, including the shutdown of the native timber industry in the state of Victoria and what it's doing to his part of it. We have a special treat for episode 2 though. Leader of the Federal Nationals, David Littleproud, stopped into my Parliament House office this week for what was supposed to be a very quick chat, but as you can appreciate, we got a little carried away talking about supermarkets, energy prices and the transition to renewables and good old-fashioned common sense.
What a pleasure and what a surprise to have Federal Leader of the Nationals, David Littleproud, in town today. How are you?
Yeah, good. Good to be in Victoria.
Really?
Yeah, it's good to visit.
Well, yeah, good
to Queensland. No, it's actually a good place to come.
It's actually warm today. Did you bring this weather with you?
Yeah, actually it's been terrible up in Queensland. In Western Queensland, I mean, yeah, we've been copping it. It's been horrible.
Are you still out at Dalby?
No, near Warwick. But
right.
I grew up in Chinchilla, which is just west of Dalby.
Because I was actually talking to Channel 9's Heidi Murphy last night about you.
Oh, right.
She and I used to work together.
Oh, right. Is she a Queenslander?
Yeah, she's from Dalby.
Oh, really?
Because she said to me, he's my local member.
Oh, there you go.
Didn't you know that?
No.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
See?
We spread far and wide.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, you know the other one that Ahern, Andrea Ahern?
Yeah.
Her father was a Queensland Premier.
Really?
My dad was his numbers man.
Really?
Kid you not? Yeah, he
Oh,
took
my
over from
gosh.
Joe Bjelke-Petersen. Mike Ahern became Premier after Joe Bjelke-Petersen.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
He died only, about 6 months ago. But Christine Ahern is Mike Ahern's daughter. National
There
Party
you
royalty.
go.
Yeah, Queensland National Party royalty.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's impressive.
yeah.
There you go. Well, we're everywhere, aren't we?
Yeah.
Because anyway, we're real people. How are things going? I mean, the Federal Nats have been in the news a bit lately, and we're not going to talk about that. But
No. It's always a bit of colour and movement in the Nats in Canberra, but yeah, look, I think we've moved on, some mistakes made, but...
there's colour and movement in the Nats everywhere. That's what makes us interesting. We're actual real people.
People, exactly, yeah. And that's the thing is, the media's made a lot about it, but really...
We're going to move on from that. Although the Batuta Advocate did print a very humorous article.
Well, you do realise the Batuta Advocate is my biggest media outlet. They're from Maranoa. Batuta is a township. This was the smallest township in the world. It lost that title because it no longer has a post office. It's just got a pub. The pub reopened only about 3 years ago. It's between Birdsville and Windora. I'm going out there in April. They have the Batuta races is the week before the Birdsville races, and it is a must. And the Advocate, although claiming to be from Batuta, they live in Sydney, but it's based off a small country town that's basically was a one-person pub. Polish guy, and he used to have a shotgun underneath the counter. If he didn't leave, he'd pull the shotgun out. So,
Well, it
was the Wild West.
Yeah, well, it still is, isn't it, in outback Queensland and up through the Territory. I knew it was based on Batuta, but clearly it's a bit of a...
Yeah, but Batuta shut down. Until these guys came back,
Yeah.
the publican died, they made the Batuta Advocate. They both did time up in Queensland as jackaroos and knew about Batuta.
Oh, that's how they knew.
And so they made it the Batuta Advocate. And from that, people came back, rebought the pub, did it up again, got it opened again. And because there's so many tourists go to Birdsville every year, it probably makes a fortune.
Oh,
So
wow.
Batuta is alive again because of the Batuta Advocate. And that's why I say they're my biggest media outlet.
That's a great story,
It is,
isn't it?
yeah.
And their content's actually really funny.
It
I
is
did
funny.
have to laugh at the little article during the week. But we're going to move on for that. But we talk about, and I've created this podcast, Nat Chat, to sit down and just have conversations with all of our MPs because we're, like I say, we're just regular people that have, I don't know, I can't speak for everybody else, but, something gets my goat as a small business owner or whatever. And learn not to whinge about things and do something about it.
Exactly.
Were you much the same way?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a little country town called Chinchilla, which is 4 hours west of...
Talk about outback Queensland.
Well, it's only the start of it. It goes a lot further. But my dad was a Nationals member, a state member of Parliament, but it was always about giving back to the community. But we always had this sense of Southeast Queensland got everything, we got nothing. And it was about, you know what, we're going to square the ledger, going to go and start swinging and make sure we got our fair share.
Yep.
And I grew up as a kid in the Bjelke-Petersen era, and Dad was part of his government for some time. And, that was where common sense came to Queensland, and delivery to Queensland outside Southeast Queensland came about. And, you could just see that you could make a difference if you stood and you swung. And sometimes you get a few uppercuts back, but you don't get in the fetal position, sit in the corner, you come out swinging again, and you make a difference. And I think the Nats have made a difference, because we're the ones that bring, whether it's common sense to Spring Street or common sense to Canberra, because we have that lived experience. And that's what makes us different to the Liberals and the Labor and definitely the Greens.
Oh, I can't.
Don't go there.
Oh, no. But you're right, and we're trying to get the message out that we're trying to bring common sense back. And when you say the Nats brought common sense back to Queensland, well, it needs to start moving south now. Doesn't it?
And sadly, a lot of the good people of Victoria left during COVID and came to Queensland. And so you do. And this is the thing, is that unless you have that, unfortunately, you end up paying the bill. And in Victoria, you're paying a big bill because you've got the biggest debt. $15 million a day in interest. That is insane. This is eye-watering, and that means no services, no delivery, and why people are leaving your state and going to the Sunshine State. And I've got to say, we've got some challenges up there too, but, it's just about making sure primary responsibility is, one, keep your people safe, and two, grow the economic pie so you can pay the bills and improve the services. Unfortunately, I think in Vic, they've gone backwards, but the Nats haven't in Victoria, and that's the one thing I'm proud of, as being the federal leader. What happened in the last federal election, a state election that you were part of.
Yeah.
Great night.
Well, I think people are just sick of the ideology and the spin, and just actually are craving a bit of common sense now.
Yeah. And delivery. And delivery is what you say.
Yeah, exactly. When we talk about the debt levels that Victoria's got and how my grandchildren are going to be paying for this, one of the things that has been, I don't know whether you know much about this, is the land tax issue at the moment. People have started getting invoices from the State Revenue Office that have gone up. I was on the phone to someone yesterday. Last year it was 25 grand. Now that's a big chunk anyway, 25 grand. This year it's $215,000. And this guy's not wealthy. He's just got a few urban-based rental properties, and he's getting slugged that much. I was floored.
Well, I am. That's insane.
Yeah.
No one can pay that, and the only way to pay for that is to realise assets so you can pay the bill, and that's extortion.
Isn't that counterproductive, though, in a housing crisis? And he said exactly that. He's like, the only way I'm going to be able to pay this if I start selling some of my rental properties. And how does that help?
Well, and then all it does is pushes rents up.
Exactly.
You need supply. And that is the issue with housing. It's supply.
Yeah.
And state governments and local governments are holding supply back by the planning laws that they're putting in. And I think here in Victoria, they're having it in New South Wales about housing density. If you want to live in Melbourne, well, you can't expect to live on 400 square metres of dirt or a 600 square metre dirt block. You might have to live in a unit. They do that in London. And we're now to the juncture where we're tearing up prime agricultural land, tearing up our food security and driving up our food prices because we're taking away the land we need when there are alternatives if you want to live in Melbourne. And that's a mature conversation we've got to have. And I think particularly in these capital cities about what the expectation of lifestyle is. And we shouldn't sell a dream you can't deliver.
No, and that's it. And when you talk about ripping up agricultural land, we've got then the difference in our region with dewatered land that they do actually want to develop because people are moving there. So I've been saying for years now, long before I was in this role, that we actually need separate planning schemes, one for metro, one for peri-urban, and one for rural and regional. And I say peri-urban because regional to us is not Bendigo, Ballarat and Geelong. Regional to us is north of the freeways. Because, there is agricultural land. I've got one next to us. It's 30 acres, dewatered. unless you are one of the big corporates, it would make great 1 acre blocks that overlooks the Murray River. Can't rezone it.
And, well, you can't get water out anymore too because they're changing the Murray-Darling Basin plan. They're taking 450 gigalitres.
Can we talk about that for a minute, please?
Yeah. This is the hugest betrayal. This was Labor's Murray-Darling Basin plan, and now they've changed the rules. And when I was Water Minister, we finally got to an agreement on sustainable diversion limits, which means we recovered the water from infrastructure, not buybacks. And we got an agreement on the 450 have a neutrality test. And Tanya Plibersek says, the 450, we only recovered 4 gig of it. Yes, that's because you would cause economic and social upheaval, which is the whole idea of why Tony Burke, when he was Water Minister, put that safeguard against it. To remove that and to simply say you're going to recover it with buybacks, plus take away the buyback cap, which means to get to the original plan of 2750, she's running around with a checkbook. And it won't be the farmers that hurt, it'll be the towns that are left behind. And this is, and Tony Burke, who when I was Water Minister, I've got to say, worked in a bipartisan way, and he wanted this all to be over. But so to open it all up again for a few seats in Adelaide, we are the political victims, but we are the economic and social victims of an experiment that's all about socialism and just really not caring one iota about people in regional Australia. And if you take another 450 gigalitres, that's about 26% of agricultural production in the Murray-Darling gone. And
we've
food prices
seen it.
go up.
Tim McCurdy and Emma Keeley came just before Christmas to Mildura on a bit of a buyback fight back to explain to people, because there is a concern that farmers are on their knees anyway with the supermarkets, and we'll get to that in a second as well, with the supermarkets and with all the other challenges they've got. Tanya Plibersek comes along with a big fat checkbook. What are they supposed to do? How do you say no to that?
You're going to cash your check in and run.
Of course you are.
But this is in the middle of a cost of living crisis. Why would you take away the tools that actually give supply? You reduce supply, prices go up.
It's basic economics, isn't it?
Well, I'm not an educated man, but I learned that in grade 8.
Well, neither am I.
In grade 8 business economics, that's the first thing that they taught you about demand and supply.
That's right.
It's a principle of economics that has stood the test of time. And even if Jim Chalmers wants to write a 6,000-word essay to try and change capitalism, you can't get away from that simple principle, and that's what will kill us. And people in Melbourne and Sydney and Brisbane all learn this when their food prices keep going up and they wonder why.
Or we have to start importing everything because it's no longer feasible to grow anything here.
Exactly. That's the sort of decision that this government is making, and we're the victims of it, but every Australian will be the victim of it in the end. And
not to mention all the export markets that have taken so long to set up. And a lot of that was due to the work that the Liberal and National federal governments did. There was a lot of work going into that. 16
free trade agreements around the world, and they actually give our farmers the opportunity to trade. We're 27 million people, but we produce enough food and fibre for 80 million people. So we actually do need trade internationally. Otherwise, we don't need our farmers. We don't need the communities that support them. So that's an enormous opportunity that helps pay the bills. And if you go back to COVID, if it wasn't for regional Australia, when the rest of the country was put underneath the doona, and particularly here in Victoria, you were forced under the doona, if it wasn't for agriculture and it wasn't for resources, you wouldn't have had JobKeeper, you wouldn't have had the support that you needed to pay for everything to keep the economy going. Yeah. And this is where, unfortunately, Labor governments who are city-centric don't appreciate that.
No, you're absolutely right. And I've started to change the language that I use in here, because I find that particularly with city-centric Labor governments, as soon as you say the word farmer or irrigator, that's been demonised. Yeah. So I don't say that anymore. I just say food producers, food and fibre producers. So it actually sits in their head that you need us every day, actually.
Yeah.
We
3 times a day.
Yeah, well, exactly.
I should only be 2, but 3 for most.
Yeah. And without farmers, you'd be hungry, naked and sober.
Exactly.
So, look after us.
Exactly.
Let's talk about the supermarkets, because Woolworths CEO, after that horrid Four Corners interview where he walked out because it got too hard.
He talks about Rod Sims, who's the former ACCC chair, that he had no value in his comments because he was retired. And ironically, Brad Banducci is going to retire and join him in retirement. But his early retirement is an admission of guilt that extends to Coles as well, that they have been price gouging, and that this is a simple playbook out of corporate Australia. blame somebody, give them a fat check, $24 million in Brad Banducci's case, send him on his way, and we'll put someone within the organisation with the same culture, same regime, do the same things, and it'll be a diversion. We'll all go back to business of doing farmers over and doing consumers over. And this is the thing, is farmers aren't looking for fixed prices. They're looking for fair, transparent prices from the farm gate to Australians' plates. And if it's not there, and when there is market dominance, and the big two supermarkets have nearly 70%, and with Aldi it's 74%. Now, the big three supermarkets in the United Kingdom have 34% of the grocery market. So the market concentration here in Australia, and in the United States, it's the big three are about 40-odd%. So here in Australia, the market concentration of the big three supermarkets is too much. And so they become the market. And it's from how they deal with farmers. And we saw a 60 to 70% reduction in meat prices in June last year.
Yep.
Yet till November, they'd only come off 8%. Now, they're cleaning up. A 60% reduction at the farm gate, but 8% at the checkout. I've got a watermelon producer. He's getting $1.50 a kilogram for his watermelons, but they are charging $4.50 at the checkout.
Yeah, they are.
And I've actually used to pick melons in Chinchilla as a kid. And I can tell you, once you pull them off, they go into a bin in the back of a tractor. They get a quick wash, and they go into the supermarket shop. There is not that much in the processing of a watermelon from the paddock to the supermarket. They are being done over. And so this is unconscionable conduct. And so the Nationals have made it clear. I asked the Competition Minister to bring forward the reviews and to increase the penalties for the ACCC to give them greater powers. And those powers should scale up to what we call divestiture powers. And what that means is if the ACCC found that the supermarkets were unconscionably dealing with farmers or price gouging on consumers, we could force them to sell a number of their stores in a geographical area, or we could force them to sell one of their chains like Big W or Dan Murphy's or Vintage Cellars, so that there were punitive penalties that meant that they were transparent in their pricing through the supply chain. Offered that to the Albanese government 12 months ago that we would help do this, because we actually did an inquiry and the ACCC didn't want those powers. But now even Alan Fells, the former ACCC chair, has come out and said the Nationals were right. We actually need divestiture powers because they have too much power. So we are going back to Parliament next week and we are going to say, whoever wants to join us, we are going to do this. But Labor, even though they started a inquiry to look at this, they have already ruled out, without even having the review sent back to them, that they don't want divestiture powers. Now, why would you actually start a review that could explore this and put it in place, but rule that out even before?
But this is what they do, right? They will go, oh, no, that's come from the other side, so we won't do that. They'll wait 4 weeks. They do it in here as well. And there's been a couple of bills come up late last year and already this year that have been put forward by us, and they go, absolutely not, vote it down, because the votes are really close, and then bring it back.
Yeah. Well, they're not going to bring it back. They've made it clear. But this is the only way to put pressure on grocery prices and to make sure they're fair and transparent. And unfortunately, what this will mean is if you look at what's driving inflation, people have stopped the discretionary spend. Inflation's still high because even though discretionary spend stopped, they've stopped going to Jerry Harvey to buy a TV. But what their fixed costs are still going up. And that is your food, that is your energy, and that is your rent. And food, someone from a household goes to a supermarket at least once, probably twice a week, and every time they go there at the moment, they're getting bled dry by the supermarkets. And we as legislators could go back and actually put downward pressure on grocery prices by actually making sure that there was transparent prices all the way through the supply chain. But for some reason, Labor have ruled that out and are simply saying, we'll do a review, we'll kick it down the road and do nothing about it. And that's not when people are making families are making really hard decisions at the checkout. They are putting fruit, they are putting wholesome food back on the shelf because they can't afford it. Now, in a country as rich as this, that you have families in such financial crisis that they are making those real decisions at the supermarket, and you have politicians who are not prepared to have the courage of their conviction to go in and do something about it, then that is an appalling state of our democracy that this government needs to be held accountable on.
Exactly right. And these are it's the very party that should be looking after those very people. That's what they have been about since the beginning of
Well, purport to be, but I mean, and this is the thing is...
But it's switched, hasn't it? Yeah. Sorry to cut you off, but also when you talk about us wanting to put downward pressure on the supermarkets, again, this is not the typical coalition MO. No. We're all about free enterprise and
we are, but as the old Nats, I've got to say, as the old agrarian socialist, to make sure so that regional Australia always gets its fair share. I have a pathological hate for supermarkets and what they have done to farmers. My 6 years as Australian Agriculture Minister, I saw the what they did to families. That's why I put in an ACCC inquiry to try and say, let's do divestiture powers. And the ACCC said no, but I think now we have gone over the precipice, that they have gone too far, and it is time to square up. And before I leave politics, by popular demand or not, I want to make sure that divestiture powers are put in place to protect farmers and to protect consumers, because they have too much market dominance. By having 74% of the market, they have become the market, they know they are the market, and they control the market, and no one should control the market. And when someone does, that's when governments interfere in markets.
I just want to show you something. See these peaches and how big they are, and the nectarines that have got a little bit of hail damage on them. When you talk about supermarkets, and I know this because I grew up picking these as a kid, too big, supermarkets won't take them. But don't they look amazing?
Yeah.
Too marked, supermarkets won't take them. And you should see the amount that we throw out. Like, it's just
Well, I was in
insane.
Orange only yesterday, New South Wales, and let me tell you, a cherry producer just said that he loses about 30 to 40% of his cherries because it doesn't meet their specs. He goes to the Sydney markets every weekend, and he can sell them no problems at all. But there was a cherry producer that was in the Four Corners. He actually had a whole consignment worth about $95,000 rejected on specs. And of course, when you're sending about 10,000 pieces of fruit in cherries, you're going to find 4 or 5 that aren't having it. He lost and only got back about $6,500 out of a $95,000 consignment that was rejected because, funnily enough, a month or two before, he'd raised and objected about the behaviour of the supermarkets. These people have used unconscionable conduct. And the ACCC are the ones that should investigate this, and because they have the powers to compel evidence and to compel witnesses. And we need to give them the powers and the penalties to square up with them. And that's what's been missing, and that's what we're saying. And it's not going to cost anything, and it's not going to cost the supermarkets anything. They're doing the right thing, so no one should fear it. But the government's already said no. You very rarely use divestiture powers around the world. That's the whole point. It's about a deterrent.
Yeah.
If you have a big deterrent, they're less likely to do it. And whether it's a criminal crime or whether it's a civil crime, if you have big penalties, people are deterred not to do it. And that's the whole idea, rather than saying, only because they use very rarely, we don't bother about it. That misses the whole point about why we have a marketplace that is being controlled by 2 big supermarkets.
It's prevention is better than cure, isn't
exactly,
it?
Yeah.
You were talking about, and we talk about this a lot in this place, and the cost of living, particularly power prices. Now, we saw the minister last week say that power prices are going down, down, down. Coles jingle. No, they're not. Like, I don't know about you. I don't know about yours, but mine certainly are not. And everyone that comes through our office is saying that theirs has gone up 10, 20, up to 40%.
Yep, and they have. And we see that every time, because what's happened is this reckless race to 82% renewables by 2030. There's not even the supply chain to be able to do that. And in doing that, you've got to also plug them in. And that means there's 28,000 kilometres of new transmission lines, which is going to cost the Australian taxpayer about $80 billion. So if you look at your energy bill at the moment, about 40 to 50% is poles and wires, service charges. You are going to add that $80 billion onto this. Now, I'm not against renewables. There is a pathway through this, and there's a sensible pathway through this. I believe in renewables, and the best place for renewables, and a solar panel in particular, is on an environment you can't destroy, on people's rooftops.
Yeah.
And if you put that with a battery in households in urban areas where the concentration of power and the concentration of population is, you actually alleviate the need for the new transmission lines. And you give households energy independence. And if you put them on our factories, you give businesses energy independence, and you alleviate the subsidies that we're giving to these multinationals to put up wind factories and solar factories and the transmission lines. You give that to Australian households and Australian businesses rather than multinationals from overseas. Now, the big piece on this is also that renewables can't do it all. And we've got to be very careful about the concentration risk of putting it all into renewables, because that opens Australia up to real reliability and security issues. So we should complement and supplement renewables with, we believe, nuclear energy. And they're not going to be everywhere. They'll be in designated places where existing coal-fired power stations are. You plug them in there so you don't, again, need more transmission lines. And you have gas with what we call carbon capture storage, which is zero emissions.
You're in Victoria.
Yeah,
you can't say gas.
Well,
you can't say gas here. It's a dirty word.
Well,
apparently.
I hope I can, because your gas comes from my electorate.
Yeah.
It's the holes in my electorate that has driven my little town that I grew up in, Chinchilla, from 3,000 people to 7,000 people.
Wow.
And no one has an issue with gas holes being drilled in our part of the world. And we need that. And you can't have renewables without gas, because you need firming power. And so this is where common sense.
Have a look to the other mob.
Well, this is where common sense needs to prevail.
Yeah.
And getting a concentration in one energy sector is dangerous for our country, but spreading and using technology is the solution. And making sure that when we spend Australian taxpayers' money, why would we give it to multinationals from overseas when we can give it to support local households and local businesses with energy independence, with the renewable mix we should have? That's what the Nationals are saying, and what we've said to the Liberals. If you want to go down this path, be very careful. There is a way to protect traditional industries of gas and coal with CCS, but there's also an opportunity to support those industries those communities transitioning that have coal with a small-scale modular nuclear at those coal-fired power stations, because you can plug them in and many of those jobs can transition across.
Absolutely.
That's common sense.
Well, it is common sense. But the argument I always get is what about the waste? Now, hang on a minute. The waste for a small nuclear reactor, and correct me if I'm wrong, you can actually reuse and recycle.
The next generation is looking to reprocess the waste.
Yeah.
But let me just tell you, we will have a nuclear waste facility here because we are having nuclear submarines.
Oh, we're going to need nuclear at some point, aren't we?
Exactly. Well, we already do.
Yeah, well, that's it.
Australia should understand we already have a nuclear industry. It's for isotopes for medical treatments. And in fact, we've had a nuclear industry here for 70 years. It's called Lucas Heights.
Lucas Heights.
And within a kilometre of Lucas Heights, there are houses selling for $1.5 million. So the good people at Lucas Heights aren't real worried about having a nuclear reactor sitting on their doorstep, because this is the problem we've got in the culture in this country is we've got into a way of simply saying why we can't do things rather than how can we, and backing ourselves with the technology and the know-how and the courage to go and do it. I just think we need to take away the ban, the moratorium on nuclear energy, and saying, let's see who's the most expensive. The market will determine that. And that will give us the mix that gives us reliability, security, as well as affordable prices that reduces our emissions.
Geez, that's refreshing. I always say, you know what, can we just jump to yes first and then figure out how to do it?
Exactly. Yep.
Like, let's stop saying no. But I think a lot of them, we've had the nuclear debate in here last year, and it seemed like there was a lot of people that just had the Simpsons disease. They were just worried about three-eyed fish. They couldn't say it either because it was nuclear, which was a real concern. Yeah. But I just think you can't, if we want to talk about clean energy, we can't do that without discussing nuclear.
We're one of two OECD countries that don't have nuclear energy. The rest have it because they've had the courage to be able to build it and to back their industry. And we're not like Europe. We don't have to worry about Vladimir Putin cutting a tap off, and we don't have energy. We have sovereignty of all our resources.
Yeah.
So we actually have the opportunity to get this mix right. Renewables, traditional coal and gas with CCS, and coal-fired power stations will slowly phase out. But that's where you put the nuclear power plants to plug in to give you that mix and that reliability and that firming. I've asked the PM for a National Energy Summit. I went to his Jobs and Skills Summit when I became Nats leader. I thought regional Australia needed a voice. But why don't we actually have a National Energy Summit? We've got state premiers, Malinakis, he believes in nuclear energy. We've got the AWU, the funders of the Labor Party, they believe in nuclear energy.
Well, because they can see that there's an industry there.
Yeah. So let's have the conversation. Let's have leadership.
Exactly. And I know you've got to go, and we could sit here and talk about this all day, so you'll have to come back. But when you talk about, and I'm glad you said the word socialism, because I said it last week, and I think Walshy nearly fainted. But I was saying it publicly. But it is. Like, there's a reason the Labor governments don't want to give people energy independence.
And this is about big government imposing ideology, their ideology that will constrain the economic development of this country with affordable, reliable energy. This is why our manufacturing sector can't compete. No government's going to be able to reduce wages. We can't compete on wages internationally because you can't reduce the standard of living. But what you can do, the other big input costs for manufacturing in this country is energy. And when you've got sovereignty over your resources, we should actually have the cheapest energy in the world.
Of course we should.
Unfortunately, we've got into this malaise of ideology being driven by Chris Bowen and Anthony Albanese that's costing not only business, but they're costing households.
Yeah.
And there is a pathway through this. And that common sense is being taken to Canberra, and the Liberals know that unless they play nice with the Nats, then we will have a difference of opinion that we're prepared to argue publicly about.
Are you?
Yeah.
Are you prepared to? Because the question we always get asked here is, if you disagree too much with the Libs, what are you going to do about the coalition agreement?
But that's a good thing that you disagree.
Yeah.
This is the thing is that the media and everyone thinks that we should all have the same opinion. Diversity of ideas and beliefs is a good thing in the political system. And Peter Dutton, I've got to say, and we're both Queenslanders, but we come from different parties, but we have very much similar ideology on many things. There's some that we don't. And I don't worry about that, but we find a pathway through that is practical in the outcomes that we know will be delivered, not just for the city people, but for us as Nats. The 30% of Australians that live outside the capital cities is all I care about.
Yeah.
And so long as Peter understands that I'll hold my ground for them, we have a good relationship. So
well, that's great. And robust debate's healthy.
It is.
Rather than
It's good
being
fun.
attacked for, having a different opinion, which is
Exactly.
sometimes what we cop as well. Lastly, let's talk about you as leader now and the people that have perhaps come before you and are still there. Do you find that, because this place, I don't know about Canberra, sometimes it can be like high school, not within the Nats, because we are the envy of this place and we know that because we're a pretty tight bunch. But when you hear the whispers around the place of other factions in the Labor Party or who, it's a bit like, is Canberra like that?
Not so much. There's only 21 of us in Canberra. And look, I actually think I've been given a gift that my job is to leave a legacy, as those that came before me have left a legacy. And that's about understanding who we are and what we are and our values and principles, and making sure that as the custodian of that, you actually preserve that and build on that and leave a legacy that grows for the next generation. And I've got two former leaders in our party room who both contribute in different ways, because we're all different leaders of how we've led our party. But that's something that we celebrate. And while we don't always agree, the good thing about the Nats is you have that out and you talk it out and you look one another in the eye and say, I don't agree. But then when we leave the room, that we're united in our response and our purpose. And the purpose of the Nationals is to represent that 30% of Australians that don't live in a capital city. We are the conscience of those people. We are their voice, and we are their movement. We are the movement for regional Australia. And that is something that unites us, no matter whether there are variances of small opinion on the detail of how we deliver it. And that's what makes the Nats different, and drawing on that experience makes us stronger, not weaker.
So beautifully said. One word, I asked Walshy this last week as well. One word to, or you can use two if you want, because I suspect I know what it is, to describe the Nats.
The movement for regional Australia. Can I have three?
No. I thought you might have said common sense.
Oh, yeah,
but okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
Awesome. Thank you very much.
too easy, mate.
We'll catch up with David again in the not too distant future, but I sincerely thank him for his time on the couch this week and his promise to come back to Mildura. Thanks for joining us again. Next week I have a yarn with Barkindji elder Uncle Colin Clark.
In the heart of the nation where laughter's the key, Natch has the podcast, join the revelry, taking the Mickey with positive spin. Country folks unite, let the Nat Chat begin. Nat Chat where the laughter's free, spinning tales about politics with positivity.
Music written and performed by Mick Harrington, recorded at Parliament House, Melbourne. We acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which this podcast was recorded and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging.